Welcome to Elder Secrets, where wisdom whispers louder than the world shouts. Today, we're diving into the secret retirement plan no one talks about. A plan that could change how you age, earn, and live. Forget what you've been told. This is the chapter they never wanted you to read. Let's begin.
Imagine for a moment that everything you've been told about retirement planning is, well, incomplete, missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. What if there's this financial strategy out there that some of the wealthiest people are quietly using, but it's so often misunderstood that, most mainstream financial advisors, they don't even bring it up. So in this deep dive, we're really pulling back the curtain on what you could genuinely call a powerful, often overlooked retirement plan. And let's be clear right up front. This isn't some shady get-rich-quick thing, not a complicated Wall Street trick. The information isn't locked away. It's actually out there. But it's often buried in jargon, or it gets misrepresented, or sometimes just dismissed by, conventional wisdom. Today, our mission really is to explore permanent life insurance as a strategic retirement vehicle. But we're going way beyond just the basic whole life product you might have heard about. Because when it's properly structured, this approach can unlock things like tax-free retirement income, provide really critical asset protection, enhance your legacy planning, and offer a kind of flexibility that, frankly, traditional accounts just can't match. We're here to unpack this powerful strategy for you, distill the most important nuggets, and help you figure out what this all means for your financial future. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so most of us, right, we've been taught max out the 401k, the IRA, invest in index funds, cross your fingers, hope compound growth does its thing. And look, that advice isn't inherently wrong, but it is definitely incomplete. And the first big piece that's often overlooked, taxes.
That's exactly right. With those traditional 401ks and IRAs, you're essentially making a pretty big bet. A bet that your tax rate way down the road in retirement will be lower than it is today. But here's the thing, the reality is, well, if you're successful, you build up a good nest egg, and you factor in things like national debt, Social Security, Medicare costs, a lot of experts are predicting future tax rates could actually be significantly higher. Think about it. You withdraw, say, $50,000 from a $1 million 401k, that whole amount, fully taxable, ordinary income rates. You've deferred the calculation, sure, but you've also basically lost all control over what those future rates are actually going to be.
Right, deferred the calculation, not eliminated the tax. And that lack of control, it goes beyond just the tax rates, doesn't it? We're also talking about flexibility, or lack thereof. Your money is typically locked up tight until you hit 59 and a half. Need it sooner, maybe an emergency, maybe a great opportunity pops up. You're looking at a hefty 10% penalty, plus the regular income taxes you'd owe anyway. That can be absolutely devastating.
It absolutely can, and that lack of control, it doesn't stop there. Later in life, you've got required minimum distributions, RMDs. Starting at age 73, the government basically forces you to take money out and pay taxes on it. Doesn't matter if you need the income or not. You just lose control over your own funds, and it can totally mess up a carefully planned withdrawal strategy.
Okay, so we've got taxes that might bite harder later, money that's locked up or forced out, but what about the market itself? The conventional wisdom is stocks always go up long term, and yeah, generally true over long stretches, but what's the big risk there, the one that can really blindside people right when they're about to retire?
That would be the danger of sequence of returns risk. It sounds technical, but it's simple, really. If you happen to retire just as the market tanks, you're forced to sell your investments at rock bottom prices just to generate income. And that can severely impact your financial health long term, even if the market bounces back later. Imagine two investors. Both start retirement with $500,000. Investor A retires into a rising market, a bull market. Investor B retires right into a bear market, a downturn. Now, even if they get the exact same average return over their whole retirement, Investor B could literally run out of money years, maybe even a decade, before Investor A, just because of the order, the sequence in which those returns happened. This is exactly what crushed people retiring around 2000 or 2008.
Wow. Yeah, timing is everything there. And then there are those often overlooked kind of insidious hidden fees. Most people just don't realize that between management fees, admin costs, those mutual fund expense ratios, you could easily be losing 2%, maybe 3% a year. And over decades, that silently eats up hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential growth. It's staggering.
Yeah.
So the takeaway here isn't 401ks bad. It's more like, while 401ks and IRAs definitely have their place, they're valuable tools, but they probably shouldn't be your only strategy. And this is exactly where this powerful, often overlooked plan we're talking about comes into play.
Yeah, it's really quite eye-opening when you see how permanent life insurance differs from what most people just call life insurance. That simple, cheap term policy you get for 10, 20 years. Permanent life insurance offers lifelong coverage. Yes, that's key. But critically, it includes a cash value component. And that cash value grows, it compounds over time. Now, when we're looking specifically at retirement planning, the two main types that really become relevant are whole life insurance and indexed universal life, which people usually call IUL.
Okay, whole life and IUL. What's the sort of core difference between those two for someone trying to get their head around it?
Sure. Whole life is kind of your traditional, very predictable option. The cash value grows at a guaranteed rate, usually, somewhere between 2 to 4% annually. Plus, and this is important, you can get potential dividends on top of that if it's from a mutual life insurance company. So steady, predictable growth. IUL, on the other hand, is a bit different. Its cash value growth is tied to a stock market index like the S&P 500. But, and this is the crucial part, it comes with a guaranteed floor, usually 0%. So that floor means even if the market crashes, your cash value doesn't lose money due to that market downturn. You get upside potential linked to the market, but with really vital downside protection.
Upside potential, downside protection. Okay. Now, here's where it seems like this strategy really becomes a potential game changer. The tax-free access. You said the cash value grows tax-deferred, kind of like a 401k or IRA, fine. But the real kicker, the secret sauce, as you might say, is that you can get at this cash value anytime for any reason, no penalties. And if it's structured right, it can be completely tax-free income in retirement. How on earth does that work?
It really comes down to how the IRS views these transactions. Essentially, they consider loans taken against your life insurance policy's cash value to be non-taxable events.
Yeah.
You're basically borrowing from yourself from your own policy's value.
Yeah.
And you have full control over whether or how you repay that loan. If you choose not to repay it during your lifetime, the outstanding loan balance simply reduces the final death benefit that goes to your heirs.
Okay, so let me make that concrete. If I need, say, $50,000 for living expenses in retirement, and my policy has $200,000 sitting there in cash value, I just take a loan for the $50K, and boom, no taxable event, no RMDs forcing me to take it, no 10% early access penalty if I'm under 59 and a half.
Exactly right. That's precisely how it works. And it gets even better. Many policies offer something called a wash loan provision. Can you imagine borrowing money from your own bank account, but the bank lets the money you borrowed keep earning interest for you as if you never touched it?
No, that sounds too good to be true.
Well, that's essentially the power of a wash loan in some of these policies. Your underlying cash value can continue earning interest or credits, sometimes even at a rate higher than the interest rate charged on a loan itself. Your money works for you even while you're using it. And beyond just accessing the money, permanent life insurance offers really significant asset protection. In most states, that cash value is shielded from creditors, from lawsuits, even bankruptcy. That's incredibly valuable, especially if you're a business owner or maybe a high-income professional worried about liability. And then for legacy planning, the death benefits pass to your beneficiaries, completely income tax-free. Plus, they can be structured, often using trusts, to avoid estate taxes too.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly powerful, almost too powerful, which brings up that immediate question most people probably have. If this is so good, why isn't everyone doing it? What are the biggest reasons this whole strategy seems to remain, largely in the shadows for the average person?
Yeah, that's a fair question. And there isn't one single answer. It's really several intertwined reasons. Probably the biggest one is complexity. Let's face it, permanent life insurance has a lot of moving parts. You've got the cost of the actual insurance coverage, how the cash value grows, how the loans work, potential dividends, different riders you can add. Honestly, many insurance agents themselves don't fully grasp how to structure these policies optimally, specifically for retirement income planning. And that often leads to poorly designed policies that don't perform well.
So it's not just complex for the person buying it, but sometimes even for the people selling it.
Precisely. Then there's the cost factor. These policies require pretty significant annual premiums. We could be talking $10,000, $20,000, even $50,000 or more a year. That obviously creates a pretty substantial barrier to entry for a lot of people. And tied into that is the commission structure. Traditionally, agents receive large upfront commissions in the early years of the policy. This can create potential conflicts of interest, sometimes leading to high-pressure sales tactics, and frankly, it's given the products a bit of a bad reputation in some circles. A big chunk of your early premiums can go to the agent, not directly into building your cash value right away.
Right. That slow start in cash value growth due to commissions and costs is something people need to expect. And what about the wider financial planning world? How does that play into it?
Well, there's been a big shift towards fee-only financial planning, where advisors charge a fee for advice rather than earning commissions on products. While that has benefits, it has also created kind of a systemic bias against commission-based insurance products, even when they might be a very appropriate solution for a client's needs. Also, this isn't a get-rich-quick strategy. It's definitely a long-term play. It typically takes, 10, maybe 15 years for the policy to really hit its stride and for that cash value growth to accelerate significantly. Our culture tends to want instant gratification, right? Waiting that long isn't always appealing.
Yeah, patience isn't always a strong suit.
Exactly. And finally, just a general lack of education. Most mainstream financial education focuses almost exclusively on traditional retirement planning, 401ks, IRAs, mutual funds. People just aren't widely taught about these more advanced strategies. Plus, you have regulations and compliance hurdles. Many financial advisors actually face restrictions from their own firms about recommending insurance products. So you put all these factors together: complexity, cost, commissions, industry bias, the long timeline, lack of education, regulations, and it keeps this strategy sort of in the background. Primarily known and used by wealthier individuals who tend to work with sophisticated financial planners who know how to navigate all this complexity.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a perfect storm of factors keeping it under the radar for many. And this actually shows up in the data, doesn't it? I saw some research from Liminari showing families with incomes over $200,000 are way more likely to own permanent life insurance. And get this, among families earning over $1 million a year, the ownership rate is over 60%. It really does make you wonder, do they know something the rest of us don't, or just view it differently?
I think it's less about a secret they're hoarding and more about, as you said, viewing these products through a different lens. Wealthier individuals and their advisors, they tend to understand that permanent life insurance isn't just about the death benefit. They see it as a powerful tool for creating what some call a private family banking system. It's about maximizing tax efficiency across their entire financial picture and maintaining a level of financial flexibility that's just unparalleled. Let me share a couple of examples. Obviously, we've changed names and details to protect privacy. Think about the Johnson family. They were tech founders, sold their business for a cool $50 million. Huge success, but they were facing a massive tax bill. What did they do? They allocated $10 million of that into large permanent life insurance policies. And importantly, these policies were owned by irrevocable life insurance trusts, or ILITs.
ILITs that keeps the policy value outside their personal estate for tax purposes, right?
Exactly. It's a key estate planning technique. So these policies grew over time. The cash value climbed to over $20 million. In retirement, they started taking substantial tax-free loans against that cash value to supplement their lifestyle. And when they eventually passed away, their children received over $40 million in completely tax-free death benefits. Effectively, they used the insurance to double that portion of their family wealth, all while bypassing estate taxes.
Wow, that's not just retirement planning, that's multi-generational wealth transfer and tax strategy all rolled into one. Incredible flexibility there.
It really is. And here's another angle. The Martinez family. They owned a successful restaurant chain. They used permanent life policies for several things simultaneously. Business succession planning was a big one. They also used the cash value growth to help fund their own retirement. And the tax-free death benefit was earmarked to provide liquidity for future business buyouts among their children, ensuring a smooth transition without forcing a fire sale of the business.
Okay, those are powerful examples for high net worth families, but you don't need to be a multimillionaire tech founder or own a restaurant chain for this to make sense, right? Bring down to earth a bit. How about a relatable example? Someone like Sarah, a marketing executive. Maybe she's 40, earns a good income, say $150,000, and she's already doing the responsible thing, maximizing her 401k contributions. How could this strategy work for her?
Great example. So Sarah decides she wants another layer to her retirement plan, something with more flexibility and tax advantages. She purchases an IUL policy, let's say it has a $1 million death benefit, and she contributes $12,000 a year in premium. Crucially, this policy is structured from day one to maximize cash value accumulation, not just provide the cheapest death benefit. So after 10 years, Sarah's paid in $120,000. Her cash value might be around $80,000. Remember that slow start we talked about? Initial costs, commissions? That's normal. But then the compounding starts to really kick in. By the time she's 60, she's paid in a total of $240,000 in premiums. But her cash value, Thanks to market-linked growth and compounding, it soared to over $400,000. Now, maybe Sarah wants to retire early, say at 60. She can start taking tax-free loans from her policy. With $400 in cash value, she could likely access up to 90% of that, so around $360,000 is available. Maybe she takes out $40,000 a year, completely tax-free. And the beauty is, her remaining cash value inside the policy can still continue to grow, potentially offsetting the loans over time. And that $1 million death benefit.
It's still there, intact for her family, minus any outstanding loans.
That's such a powerful contrast. Let's think about the alternatives for that same $12,000 a year. If Sarah put it in a regular taxable brokerage account, she'd be paying taxes every year on dividends and capital gains distributions. Then, when she sells to take income in retirement, she pays capital gains tax on all the appreciation. If she put it into her 401k instead, assuming she could contribute that much more, she'd get the upfront tax deduction, sure. But every single dollar coming out in retirement is taxed as ordinary income. Plus, she's subject to those RMDs later and potential early withdrawal penalties. This life insurance strategy, though, it offers that tax-free growth, tax-free access whenever she needs it, no RMDs forcing her hand, built-in asset protection, and that death benefit as a bonus or legacy tool. It really is a completely different animal.
It truly is. And this brings us right to the absolute core element for making this work. Proper structuring. This isn't something you just buy off the shelf. The key, the absolute make-or-break element, is designing the policy to maximize cash value accumulation while, at the same time, minimizing the internal cost of the insurance coverage itself. Getting that balance right is critical for the strategy to perform the way you want it to. Now, when you're choosing the policy type, remember, whole life offers that guaranteed growth, that predictability. It's often best if sourced from a strong mutual company with a good history of paying dividends. Predictable, steady. Index Universal Life, the IUL, that's for potentially higher growth because it's linked to market indexes. But you still get that crucial downside protection with the floor, usually 0%. If you're looking at IULs, you really need to dig into the details, things like the cap rate, which limits your maximum potential gain in a good year, and the participation rate, which determines how much of the index's gain you actually get credited. Strong caps and participation rates are good, along with that guaranteed floor.
Okay, and you mentioned something earlier, the modified endowment contract, or MEC trap. Can you give us maybe a quick, simple analogy for what that is, how someone might accidentally fall into it, and why avoiding it is so critical?
Sure, think of it like this. A properly structured life insurance policy gets special tax treatment from the IRS, like it's traveling in a super-fast HOV lane on the highway, tax-deferred growth, tax-free access via loans. But the IRS has rules to make sure it's primarily life insurance, not just a tax shelter. If you put too much money into the policy too quickly, basically, overfunding it beyond what the IRS allows based on the death benefit, you violate those rules. When that happens, your policy gets kicked out of the HOV lane and becomes a modified endowment contract, or MEC. It loses those amazing tax advantages. Accessing the cash value might become taxable, similar to an annuity. So a properly structured policy has to pass something called the 7-pay test. It's designed to ensure you don't overfund it relative to the death benefit in the first 7 years, or after certain changes. Staying non-MEC is absolutely essential to keep those tax benefits intact.
Got it, like staying within the speed limit to keep your special driving privileges. Fascinating. So it's this careful balance fund, enough to make it grow powerfully, but not so aggressively that it loses its special tax status. And what about structuring the death benefit itself? Does that matter for cash value growth?
Yes, significantly. For the goal of maximizing cash value for retirement income, you'll almost always want to choose an increasing death benefit option, at least initially. This structure allows more of your premium dollars to flow directly into the cash value component, rather than just paying for the baseline cost of the death benefit itself. It essentially creates more room for tax-advantaged growth. Now, policies come with various optional features called riders. There can be a lot of them, but there are a few that are really crucial for this strategy. The Paid-Up Additions rider, or PUA rider, is like rocket fuel for your cash value. It allows you to put extra premium payments into the policy, which buys small, fully paid-up blocks of additional insurance, significantly boosting your cash value growth over time. It's often the engine of the accumulation strategy. Another really important one is the disability waiver of premium rider. Think of this as a safety net. If you become totally disabled and can't work or pay your premiums, this rider ensures the insurance company pays the premiums for you, keeping the policy and your whole plan intact. It's vital protection.
Okay, PUA for growth, waiver for protection. Makes sense. Any others worth mentioning?
Yeah. Riders that allow you to access a portion of the death benefit while you're still living if you suffer a long-term care need or chronic illness are also becoming increasingly common and valuable. to add another layer of flexibility. Regarding your premium strategy, while many policies offer flexible payments, especially universal life types, a strategy of front-loading, paying higher premiums in the early years, can really turbocharge the long-term performance due to longer compounding. And of course, it goes without saying, you absolutely must choose an insurance company with top-tier financial strength ratings from agencies like AM Best, Moody's, S&P. Look for companies with a long, stable track record. Finally, timing does matter. Generally, the younger and healthier you are when you start, the lower the internal cost of insurance will be. That means more of your premium goes towards cash value growth right from the start. While the standard advice is often max out 401ks and IRAs first, that's not always a rigid rule. For some people, especially high earners or business owners, starting this strategy earlier, even alongside traditional accounts, might make sense depending on their specific goals and circumstances.
Okay, let's really drill down hard on these tax advantages now, because honestly, this seems to be where the strategy truly shines and could potentially save you, the listener, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions in taxes over your lifetime. First off, you mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. Unlike 401ks or IRAs with their strict annual contribution limits, properly structured permanent life insurance has no IRS contribution limits when it comes to that tax-deferred growth. So for high-income earners who've already maxed out everything else, they could potentially put in $50,000, $100,000, maybe even more per year if the policy is structured correctly to handle it without becoming an MEC.
Exactly. That's a massive advantage right there for high earners feeling constrained by traditional limits. Let's look at some concrete numbers again to really drive this home. Imagine two people. Both earn $300,000 a year. Both want to save an additional $50,000 per year beyond their 401k for the next 30 years. And let's assume they both average a 7% return. Person A puts that $50K a year into a standard taxable brokerage account. After 30 years, they'd accumulate about $4.7 million on paper. But along the way, they've been paying taxes annually on dividends and capital gains distributions. Let's estimate that reduces their effective after-tax accumulation to maybe $4.2 million. Then, when they start taking money out into retirement, they owe capital gains taxes on all that growth, maybe $2.7 million of appreciation. That could easily be another $400,000, $500,000, maybe more, in taxes due upon withdrawal.
Okay, so taxes along the way and a big tax bill at the end. What about person B?
Now, person B uses a properly structured IUL policy for that same $50K a year. They also accumulate roughly $4.7 million in cash value, assuming that same 7% average crediting rate, net of fees and costs. But here's the absolute key difference. Zero taxes paid on that growth along the way, tax-deferred accumulation. And then in retirement, they access that cash value tax-free via policy loans. The difference in taxes paid between person A and person B over those 30 years and into retirement, we're easily talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially $500,000 or more saved in taxes just by using the life insurance structure.
So it's not just deferring the tax like a 401k, it's potentially eliminating the tax on the access side. That is a fundamental game-changing difference. And what about for estate planning? You touched on this.
Yes, this is another huge benefit, especially for those concerned about leaving a legacy. The death benefit itself passes to beneficiaries completely income tax-free. Think about that $1 million policy Sarah had. Maybe it grows and the death benefit increases to $3 million over her lifetime. Her beneficiaries receive that full $3 million, no income taxes due. Compare that to inheriting a $3 million traditional 401k, where beneficiaries would owe ordinary income tax on every dollar they withdraw. It's a massive difference in the net amount received. And for wealthier individuals, as we mentioned with the Johnsons, using an ILITE means the death benefit can also be completely free from estate taxes. This is incredibly significant, especially with the federal estate tax exemption currently scheduled to be cut roughly in half in 2026. It could suddenly affect many more families.
So income tax-free, death benefit, potentially estate tax-free. What else on the tax front?
Well, this strategy effectively protects you from the risk of future tax rates going up. By using policy loans for tax-free income, you've essentially locked in today's tax treatment, which is zero tax on loans, for your future retirement income stream. You're insulated from whatever Congress decides to do with income tax rates down the road, unlike 401k withdrawals, which are fully exposed to future rates. And critically, you maintain full control over distributions. There are no RMDs forcing you to take money out of a life insurance policy. You decide when and how much cash value to access via loans.
This allows for much smarter tax management in retirement, letting you coordinate policy loans with other income sources to potentially stay in lower tax brackets overall.
Right. Let's just put a final number on that control aspect. Think about that couple we mentioned earlier, $2 million in cash value, taking out $80,000 a year tax-free via loans for 25 years. That's $2 million they access without paying a dime in taxes. If that same $2 million had come out of their 401k, even assuming a modest blended federal and state tax rate of, say, 25%, they would have paid $500,000 in taxes on those withdrawals. A $500,000 difference straight into their pocket instead of the government's. It's truly eye-opening when you see the numbers.
Okay, we've definitely established the theory and the powerful tax advantages. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Let's explore how this actually plays out in real-world situations. Can you share more of those case studies?
Absolutely. These stories, again with Shane's details, really help illustrate the versatility and power of this strategy for different people in different circumstances. Let's revisit case 1. David, the restaurant chain owner. Remember his challenges. Most wealth tied up in the business, needed diversification, a succession plan, and protection for his family if something happened to him. His solution was that $10 million IUL policy funded with $200,000 annual premiums. What did it achieve? Immediate life insurance protection? Check. Diversified his wealth outside the business? Check. Funded a significant portion of his retirement using $3 million in tax-free loans? Check. And even after taking those loans, the policy was projected to still leave over $8 million in tax-free death benefits for his heirs, providing the liquidity needed for a smooth business transition between family members or key employees. It solved multiple problems at once.
Yeah, that's a classic case of how integrated this can be for a business owner, personal retirement, business continuity, estate planning, all working together.
Precisely. Now let's look at case 2. Dr. Sarah Chin, the orthopedic surgeon. High income, top tax bracket, major concerns about potential malpractice lawsuits impacting her personal assets and already maxing out traditional retirement options. Her solution was a $3 million whole life policy with $100,000 annual premiums. Why whole life? Maybe she valued the guarantees and predictability. Critically, in her state, the cash value had strong protection from creditors and lawsuits, including malpractice claims. That was huge peace of mind. She paid in $2 million in premiums over the years, and the cash value grew predictably with guarantees and dividends to $3.2 million. She decided to retire early at 60. She started taking $150,000 per year in tax-free loans. This tax-free income helped keep her overall taxable income lower in retirement, potentially saving on Medicare premiums too. And she used some of that accessible cash value to help fund her child's business startup and provide a down payment for their first home. Flexibility in action.
That malpractice protection aspect is such a critical point for doctors, lawyers, other high liability professions. It's fascinating how this strategy addresses that specific risk, completely separate from the retirement income and tax benefits. Really powerful combination.
Indeed. Now let's go younger with case 3. Mike, the software engineer, started his career young, age 25, solid income around $75K, but wanted flexibility and control over his long-term savings, maybe skeptical about locking everything up until 60. His solution was a more modest $500,000 IUL policy. He started with his $6,000 annual premium, planning to increase it to $12,000 or more as his income grew. Here, the power of time is just incredible. Because he started so young, even with relatively modest premiums, the compounding effect was huge. By the time he reached age 45, maybe he'd paid in around $200,000 total. But his cash value, thanks to 2 decades of growth, already over $300,000, this gave him options. Maybe he decides to semi-retire at 55, cutting back work hours. He could start taking modest tax-free loans from his policy, maybe $20K, $30K a year, to supplement his reduced income long before he could touch his 401K without penalties.
That is a perfect illustration for younger listeners. It really drives home the incredible advantage of starting early, even if it's with smaller amounts initially. That long compounding runway makes a massive difference.
Absolutely. Time is the biggest multiplier. Okay, next up, case 4. Robert and Maria, the blended family. Their challenge was a common one, but emotionally complex. How to provide equitably for children from each of their previous marriages while also building shared wealth for their life together. Traditional estate plans can get messy here. Their solution was elegant, a $2 million second-to-die policy. This type of policy covers both lives, but only pays out the death benefit after the second person passes away. It's often more cost-effective than 2 individual policies. They paid $18,000 a year in premiums, structuring it to maximize cash value. During their retirement, they accessed some of that cash value via tax-free loans for travel and lifestyle expenses. Then upon the surviving spouse's passing, the policy paid out the $2 million death benefit, plus any remaining growth, minus loans. Their estate plan directed $1 million tax-free to Robert's children and $1 million tax-free to Maria's children. It provided a clean, equitable solution, overcoming potential legacy conflicts.
That blended family example is fantastic. It really highlights how this strategy can cut through complex family dynamics and legacy issues in a way that, like you said, traditional plans often struggle to handle cleanly. Very smart.
Finally, let's look at Case 5. Helen, the risk-averse government employee. Maybe she had a decent pension, but worried it wouldn't be quite enough, especially with inflation. And she was very concerned about stock market volatility. Didn't want to risk her retirement savings dropping just when she needed them. Her solution was different. A single premium whole life policy. She took a lump sum, maybe from savings or an inheritance, say $200,000, and paid the entire policy premium up front. This bought her a guaranteed death benefit and guaranteed cash value growth, plus potential dividends. Because it was whole life, it wasn't exposed to market downturns. Her cash value grew steadily and predictably. Maybe after just 5 years, that $200K lump sum had grown to over $250,000 in cash value. In retirement, she could take small tax-free loans against that cash value whenever she needed extra funds to supplement her pension and Social Security, giving her immense peace of mind without any market risk.
These cases together are incredibly powerful. They really drive home the point that this isn't a niche strategy only for the super rich or only for business owners. It demonstrates how it can work across different income levels, different life stages, different risk tolerances. Particularly effective, it seems, for people with somewhat complex situations or specific goals beyond just raw investment return. But always, as you keep emphasizing, as part of a comprehensive, well-thought-out financial plan.
Yes, exactly. Integration is the key word. It shouldn't exist in a vacuum.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time outlining how powerful this can be when done right. But like any sophisticated financial tool, there are definitely ways to mess it up. There are common mistakes people make that can really undermine the whole strategy. What are the absolute biggest pitfalls you see people falling into? The things our listeners absolutely need to avoid if they're considering this?
The single biggest mistake, bar none, in my experience, is working with the wrong advisor, honestly. There are many people out there who sell insurance, but they aren't necessarily equipped or focused on designing these policies as sophisticated retirement planning tools. They might be more focused on the commission than the optimal long-term outcome for you. You absolutely must seek out advisors who hold advanced professional designations like CLU, Chartered Life Underwriter, CHFC, Chartered Financial Consultant, or CFP, Certified Financial Planner. And critically, ask about their specific, proven experience in using life insurance for retirement income planning and other advanced strategies. Demand detailed policy illustrations showing how it works under different assumptions. Demand clear, plain English explanations. And be highly skeptical of anyone who makes it sound too simple, too good to be true, or promises wildly unrealistic returns. Due diligence on the advisor is step one.
Okay, finding the right guide is paramount. What about choosing the actual policy itself? What mistakes happen there?
Second major mistake is definitely choosing the wrong policy type for your specific goals, your time horizon, and importantly, your risk tolerance. Not all permanent life insurance is the same. You really need to match your comfort level. Do you strongly prefer guarantees and predictability? Whole life might be better. Are you comfortable with potential market-linked growth, understanding there are caps, but also wanting that downside floor? Then an IUL might be a fit. Don't just buy what someone pushes, and always, always verify the insurance company's financial strength ratings. You're making a long-term commitment. You need to be sure the company will be there decades from now.
Makes sense. And then there's the money going in, right? You talked about the MEC trap. Funding it correctly seems crucial.
Exactly. Mistake number 3 is either underfunding or overfunding the policy. If you underfund it, putting in too little premium, the cash value growth will likely be weak. The internal costs might eat up too much of it, making it relatively ineffective as a retirement asset. But as we discussed, if you overfund it too quickly, you trigger that MEC status and lose all the key tax advantages. Poof, gone. So proper structuring by a knowledgeable advisor to contribute the maximum allowable premium under the IRS guidelines, specifically passing that 7-pay test without triggering MEC status, is absolutely vital. It's a fine line, but a critical one.
Okay, not too little, not too much. Goldilocks funding. And this isn't a quick fix, is it?
Definitely not. Mistake number 4 is not understanding the timeline involved. I mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. This is typically a 10 to 15-year commitment, sometimes even longer, before you really see that strong cash value acceleration. You have to be patient. Don't expect huge returns in the first few years. If you're not prepared for that long-term perspective, or if you think you might need the money back in 5 years, this is likely not the right strategy for you.
And once it's set up, you can't just stick it in a drawer and forget about it, right?
No, absolutely not. That's mistake number 5. Ignoring policy performance and ongoing management. This isn't like buying a bond and just collecting interest. You can't just file it and forget it.
Oh,
You should be reviewing the policy performance annually with your advisor, especially with IUL policies. Market conditions might change, or new crediting strategies might become available. Sometimes active allocation decisions might be needed to optimize growth while still maintaining that downside protection. It requires periodic attention.
and thinking of it as just this standalone insurance thing, completely separate from your investments or other retirement accounts.
That's a big one. Mistake number 6. Not integrating it properly with your overall financial plan. It needs to be viewed holistically. How will potential tax-free policy loans coordinate with withdrawals from your 401k or IRA? How will it affect your Social Security timing decisions? And how does the death benefit fit into your comprehensive estate plan? It needs to work seamlessly with your wills, trusts, and beneficiary designations for optimal results. It's a piece of a larger puzzle.
And what about those potentially dazzling illustrations that some agents might show projecting huge future values?
Yeah, that leads to mistake number 7. Falling for unrealistic projections. Agents have software that can show various scenarios, and sometimes they might emphasize the most optimistic ones based on high, potentially unsustainable crediting rates. Always demand to see illustrations run with more conservative, lower growth assumptions. Ask to see illustrations based on the guaranteed minimums as well, even if they look low. Remember, projections, especially on IULs, are not guarantees. Understanding the potential range of outcomes is crucial.
Good advice. Be realistic. What about needing access to your money for other things?
8th mistake, not having adequate liquidity elsewhere. Because this is a long-term strategy, and accessing cash value, especially in the early years, can be inefficient or costly. If you have to surrender the policy, you shouldn't put money into this that you think you might need for short-term goals or emergencies. Maintain a separate emergency fund. Don't make yourself policy-rich and cash-poor.
And really understanding the fine print on those loans.
Yes. Number 9, not fully understanding the loan provisions. Know the details. What's the loan interest rate? Is it fixed or variable? Does the policy offer those wash loans or participating loans where your borrowed cash value still earns interest or dividends? Understanding how loans work is critical to using the policy effectively in retirement.
Okay. And one final one, thinking really long term.
The 10th common mistake is not planning for policy management in later years. What happens if you become incapacitated? Who has the authority to manage the policy, pay premiums, or take loans if needed? This should be addressed in your power of attorney documents. And equally important, educate your beneficiaries. Make sure they know the policy exists, who the company is, and how to claim the death benefit efficiently and tax-free when the time comes. Don't let it be a surprise discovery years later. Listing all these potential pitfalls really brings up an important question for anyone listening. Are you willing to invest the time upfront, do the homework, and work closely with qualified professionals to make sure you avoid these common mistakes? That commitment is really non-negotiable for success here.
That's a great point. It requires diligence. So after diving deep into the mechanics, the benefits, the potential pitfalls, the big question remains, is this strategy right for you? As we've said, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Absolutely not. Based on everything we've discussed, the ideal candidates, the people who often benefit most, typically include: first, high-income earners, especially those who have already maxed out their traditional retirement accounts, their 401ks, IRAs, and are actively looking for more ways to save for retirement on a tax-advantaged basis without those restrictive IRS contribution limits. Second, business owners. This strategy can be incredibly valuable for them. It can help manage irregular income streams, provide retirement funds when traditional small business plans might be limited, ensure liquidity for estate taxes or succession planning, offer that crucial asset protection from business liabilities. It checks a lot of boxes for entrepreneurs. Third, individuals with estate planning concerns. This is especially relevant if you anticipate potentially owing estate taxes. Remember that federal exemption is likely dropping significantly in 2026. Or if you have complex family situations like blended families where ensuring an equitable and tax-efficient inheritance is a priority. Fourth, those who highly value flexibility and control. If you like the idea of potential early retirement options, if you want to avoid government-mandated RODs, if you want access to your capital for life's opportunities or emergencies without penalties, that control aspect is a major draw. And fifth, risk-averse individuals who still seek growth, people who prefer the guarantees of whole life or the market upside potential of an IUL,
but with that critical downside protection floor. It can offer peace of mind compared to being fully exposed to market volatility, while still allowing participation in growth.
Okay, that's a pretty clear picture of who might find this particularly attractive. So conversely, who should probably steer clear, or at least hold off on exploring this until other things are in place?
Right. This strategy is probably not the right first step for a few groups. First, anyone who hasn't yet maximized their other available tax advantage savings options, especially things like getting the full employer match in your 401k that's free money. You should always grab that first. Build that foundation. Second, individuals with limited disposable income, significant high-interest debt like credit cards, or an inadequate emergency savings fund. Focus on getting those financial basics solid before committing to large, long-term insurance premiums. Third, people who are already close to retirement, maybe age 55 or older, who realistically don't have that crucial 10 to 15-year time horizon for the policy's cash value to really mature and compound effectively. Starting late might make it less efficient than other options. Fourth, if you anticipate needing all your savings to remain highly liquid and easily accessible in the short term, this isn't the place for that money due to potential early surrender charges. Fifth, if you're just genuinely uncomfortable with financial complexity and prefer very simple, straightforward strategies, the moving parts here might be a deterrent.
And finally, if your only goal is maximizing raw investment returns and you're comfortable with market risk, you might achieve higher highs and lower lows elsewhere. Remember, the primary advantages here are the unique combination of tax benefits, flexibility, asset protection, and the death benefit, not necessarily beating the market every single year.
That's a really helpful breakdown. It sounds like, again, it's a powerful tool, but one that really fits specific situations, goals, and financial profiles. So for those listeners who are hearing this and thinking, okay, this actually sounds like it could align with my financial future, my goals, what are the concrete, actionable next steps they should take?
Okay, if you're intrigued, here's a logical sequence. Step 1. Assess your current financial situation. Really get honest. Write down your income, expenses, assets, debts, any existing insurance, and what you're currently saving for retirement. Know your starting point. Step 2. Define your goals and objectives. Get specific. What exactly do you want this strategy to help you achieve? Is it supplemental tax-free income? How much? By when? Is it estate planning? Asset protection. Write it down. Clear goals guide the process. Step 3. Find the right professional team. This is critical, as we discussed. Don't just talk to any insurance agent. Seek out a qualified, experienced financial advisor or insurance professional, ideally with those CLU, CHFC, or CFP credentials. You might also need to involve your CPA and an estate planning attorney to ensure everything is coordinated properly. Step 4. Compare insurance companies and products. Once you have an advisor, work with them to look at policies from several top-rated companies. Compare their financial strength, their historical performance, especially dividend history for whole life or index performance for IULs, and the specific features and costs of their policies.
Step 5. Get quotes and detailed illustrations. Have your advisor run personalized illustrations based on your age, health, and funding plans. Insist on seeing projections using multiple conservative growth assumptions, not just the rosiest picture. Understand the guarantees versus the projections. Step 6. Complete the application and underwriting process. If you decide to proceed, you'll need to apply and go through medical underwriting, usually a health questionnaire, maybe a medical exam, and financial underwriting. Be completely honest and thorough here. It affects your eligibility and premium costs. Step 7. Fund and monitor your policy. Once approved and the policy is issued, set up your planned premium payments, preferably automatic ones so you don't miss any, and commit to reviewing the annual statements you receive from the insurance company with your advisor. And finally, Step 8. Integrate with your overall financial plan. Make sure your beneficiary designations are correct and aligned with your will or trust. Keep your other advisors informed. Ensure it's working together with everything else.
That's a great roadmap. And along that journey, what are some common, maybe frustrating challenges someone might encounter? Just so they're prepared.
Good question. Well, the underwriting process can sometimes be slower than people expect, especially if there are medical records to gather. Patience is needed there. There might be a temptation, especially in the early years when cash value growth feels slow, to reduce premium payments generally. You want to avoid that if possible. Stick to the plan for optimal results. You might get conflicting advice from different professionals. Maybe your fee-only planner is skeptical while the insurance specialist is enthusiastic. That's where having a coordinated team helps. And just constantly reminding yourself, this is not instant gratification. It's a long-term strategy requiring discipline and patience. Those are probably the main hurdles. Ongoing management is key too, to plan for those annual reviews and start thinking about your access strategy well before you need the income.
Excellent. Well, we have certainly taken a deep dive today. We've thoroughly explored how a properly structured permanent life insurance policy can offer that incredible combination of tax-free income potential, robust asset protection, and unparalleled flexibility. But we've also been clear about its complexities, its costs, and its limitations. When you think about retirement planning, the biggest risk isn't always market volatility or even future tax law changes, though those are risks. Often the biggest risk is simply inaction, doing nothing, or not exploring all your options. Time truly is your most valuable asset in planning, and it's the one thing you can never, ever get back. So please don't let this just be another interesting deep dive you listened to and then forgot about. Take what you learned today and actively consider it in the context of your own life. Assess your situation, educate yourself further on your specific options. Maybe this isn't right for you, maybe it is. And most importantly, if you think it might be a fit, engage with qualified, objective professionals who can help guide your specific decisions based on your unique circumstances. Here's a final thought to leave you with. Your future self, the you that's 10, 20, 30 years down the road, they will truly thank you for the thoughtful actions and informed decisions you make today. Years from now, you probably won't remember the small sacrifices made or the effort it took to learn about something new and complex like this. But you will absolutely remember and cherish the peace of mind and the financial freedom that those efforts ultimately provided. The secret we talked about today, it isn't really about hidden information. It's about understanding the information that is available, taking action on it, and having the discipline to stick with your well thought out plan. Your future self is counting on you.